Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Business Spotlight. I'm your host, Todd Rodden. I'm a certified business and executive coach with Aspire Action Coach, based here in Southwest Ohio. Today, you're going to hear an intriguing story. Have you ever wondered, what do metal stamping, greeting cards, automation equipment, and healing stones all have in common? You're going to hear a leadership story from George White around how all those can come together in our interview here today. So, without further ado, George White, who's the CEO of CM Paula Company, welcome to the Business Spotlight. Take a second, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit more about the intriguing businesses underneath the CM Paula umbrella, and how did you get started in the organization?
Sure. Todd, well, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Look forward to the discussion with you today. So CM Paul has been around since 1958. It was one of the leading gift companies in the United States for the first 40 years of its existence, selling little unique plaques and world's greatest dad, world's best teacher, coffee mugs, things like that, all made here in the Cincinnati area, and sold to retailers that, I'd like to say you and I are too young to remember, but we can probably remember People's Drug and Woolworth and Kresge's and even Kmart, which actually the last Kmart just closed recently.
Yeah.
So that it was a really strong business, did really well. But in the late 90s, with the retailer consolidation and the offshoring of products to China, the business started going down. And the owner at the time, Charles McCullough, who founded the company in 58, he was trying to figure out what to do. So he hired a CEO to come in. The CEO looked at it and said, "You've had a great career. My advice to you is to take the money you've made, cash out, and move to Florida." And Charles said, "No, I'm a business is what I want to do, and so I want to give me another piece of advice. I don't accept that one."
Yeah.
So the CEO, and it wasn't me, it was my predecessor, said, "Well, what you really ought to do then is close down your business, take the money, and become a holding company, and buy other companies." Um, so that's what they did, and so they wound down CM Paula. The last CM Paula product sold in 2005. And they started looking at new businesses to buy. They started with a small sports licensing company, which kind of proved the model, but also proved that sports licensing is a really tough business because it's super cyclical.
Yeah.
And having that as your only business, which is a lesson we learned for applied later, was a problem. So they went out looking for another business and they found me. And I was running at the time a company called Up With Paper, which was the first pop-up greeting card company in the country, founded in 78. And it was a perfect marriage because Upwood Paper had a fantastic product, the best greeting cards in the world, and no money because we owed all these people money. I came in 04 to do a turnaround. And the first thing I said is, "Where's the money? We have no money." Deep in debt. CM Paul had lots of money and no product. So boop, perfect match. So came in and we were like a $4 million company when we came in. And I believed in my product. And I told the CEO, Greg, I said, I think if you come in and let us run with this, I think we can triple the size of the company in pretty short term. So they acquired us in 05. We then quadrupled the company in the first 5 years. The sales and revenue and profits from CM Paula then enabled us to buy the next company, which was GeoCentral. They sell crystals and rocks. If you go to a park and you see a big vat of rocks, they do those. If you go in a store and see really high-end crystals, they sell those as well. So we bought them, similar to Upwood Paper, profitable every year after we bought them. So those two companies were then growing along. And then we got a couple of years after that. So I've been here 7 years or so now. I was on the executive committee. And we started thinking, we're doing well in consumer products, we're growing, but we are completely in the consumer products world. We need to diversify. So we went into Charles McCullough. So this now you're talking about a business guy who's like 80. So this, most people are winding down their careers at this point. No, we explained to him we wanted to diversify. Yes, all for it. So we found a local metal stamping company. So they're a tier 2 supplier, banging out, building, shaking, banging out parts. The washer and the car jack in your car, we probably made because we make millions of those. So we acquired that firm, separate building. And then finally, we said we want to diversify further. So we acquired a company called Remtech Automation, which is an automation firm that develops robotic solutions for jobs that are dangerous, dirty, and repetitive. So you think about a job where that it's tough for people to do, but a robot can do it. We create systems that may replace just one person with one robot. It could be a system that's 20 robots doing a whole assembly line. Customized solutions, we create them here. So here in our building in Mason, we have a super high-end automation and robotics firm. And in the same building, we have people pushing carts down the aisle to pick rocks and crystals to send out to retailers. And then the metal stamping company is located about 10 miles away. So I go back and forth between the two. So those are the four companies. Charles McCullough passed away about 7 years ago, left the business to his children. So we are now a second generation company. They do not live in the area, so I manage it for them. I was elevated to the CEO about 3 years ago after being on the executive committee for almost 20 years. So I'm now managing the company. The business now, we're looking to continue to grow, obviously, because you got to grow. But unlike their father, his children are not quite as aggressive for going out and continuing to diversify. We want to try to make the most of the four companies that we've got. That could include small acquisitions to bolt on, but we're looking to maximize what we have. So that's kind of who we are. My background, I'll give you the much shorter version. I'm also highly diversified. You see over my shoulder the picture of the Capitol there. I started my career on Capitol Hill. I was a congressional staffer for 5 years. Then I worked in some marketing and PR firms. I managed trading card brands. I managed Bicycle and some other playing card brands for US Playing Card. Worked in the greeting card industry, did an internet startup doing web content really early in that, and then went to Up with Paper. So I've done a lot of different things, and that I think the different things that I've done maybe helps me get my head around managing four different companies here at CM Paula. So that's who we are and who I am.
Well, that's pretty simple. All right, all right, all right. So appreciate you sharing that. And all kidding aside, I think it's just a pinnacle example for folks out there. People talk a lot about trying to diversify their business, but far too often people actually, when they think about diversification, they kind of are moving into an adjacency, right? And so you're doing a little bit of diversification, but no, the steps you talked through with CM Paul, I mean, really moving in completely different lines of businesses, different types of customers, like you said, from consumer products into kind of technical automation, for factories and things like that. So very unique, big, bold steps. Applaud you and the team. It's just great story there. Now, is the
I can say I said it all in a couple of minutes, but I will say we obviously had to look at dozens and dozens of firms to acquire them. It wasn't like each one came to us and said, "Oh, here's your next acquisition." It wasn't quite as easy as I talked about. But yeah, I think what you said is exactly right. Diversification, and we do that. Our greeting card company comes up with new products all the time. Our metal stamping company is looking into new industries to make products for all the time. But when we diversified in the other industries, it really has been helpful because we've never had all four companies hit a home run each year. I would say we never even had all four companies hit a double each year, but we've always had enough companies that are on base that if one has a year where they're stuck in the dugout, we're still okay as a corporation. And probably pandemic is the best example of that because here in Ohio, Governor DeWine shut down all non-essential businesses for, I think it was about 6 weeks.
yeah.
And so Up with Paper and GeoCentral, we were shut down, but automation and metal stamping was deemed essential. So those businesses could actually keep operating, could keep coming in the building, keep running our business and keep all the lights on. And as a result, we came out of the pandemic. We actually that was a really good year, the pandemic. We ended up making money that year. We kept almost all of our employees. So that's a good success story. And to me, kind of that's the best illustration of what diversification can do, because God hopes that's the worst situation we ever face in the business world is what happened during COVID.
So maybe kind of build upon that. Shit, maybe that was it. But is there another key challenge you can remember during your time leading the group that you guys had to overcome? And what did you learn from that?
I think probably one to talk about is with Art. This has happened kind of as I was rising up to become the CEO. So I was part of the decision-making process, but not the ultimate decision maker. Art Metals Group, again, old school metal stamping, been around for 75 years. There's equipment in there that we actually had Minster just come in to do a film of a printer because we have one of their oldest presses still in operation. It came in 1958, so they came in
Yeah.
and wanted to film it because they were so amazed it was still making stuff. We have grandchildren of people who work there. I mean, it's amazing, the dedication in the world. But they've been kind of making the same type of products for a long time, and we were concerned that we kind of hit a ceiling. We weren't going to be able to keep growing, so we sent some of our guys to Europe to look and see what was going on there, and we found a really high-speed press that could get us in a completely new sector of business, which is instead of our presses. You think of them going up and down 60 times a minute. So they're making one part a second. This press can go 600, 700 strokes a minute and also can run, up to a 6 cavity job. So suddenly you're talking about 3,600 parts a minute. I mean, it's astronomical the way the parts are pouring out of there. Completely new business. That required a big investment in the printer and in the building, and it required us to go out and get new partners for that. So we had to do all that at once, which we did. It's been a slower ramp up than we would like, but it has enabled us to get into a completely new business sector, and suddenly the market top for art is much higher than it was 4 years ago before we made those changes.
Okay.
And obviously, you had to have all your employees engaged and invested in that. And they're the ones that made the recommendations, frankly. They went to Europe, they came back and said, we think with this press, we can open up these markets. So that's kind of how it came about.
Okay. So your key learning from that was it, hey, it opened up the market even more broadly than you thought, or it was something else?
Yeah, I think the key learnings were two things. One is listen to your people, and then as we go along, you'll hear me talking about that a lot. Yeah, I think I'm a pretty good businessman, but I don't know the intricacies of metal stamping. I don't know the intricacies of that market. So I need to listen to those people. They're the ones that know the business. They're the ones that know the possibility. And then the second is that you can figure out ways to diversify, even a business as I don't want to say old, but it's been around as
Yeah.
long as art has been. You can figure out a way to diversify it, and bringing in that press has completely changed what we can do. And we're still doing what we used to do, but we're also doing the new
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. So kind of flipping that now, that's a great example looking back, making that big, bold investment, moving it into even bigger markets, right? Listening to your people, like you said. What's the challenge that's in front of you today? Thing you're trying to
The
solve for?
biggest challenge we have today, and in some ways this goes across all four companies, is getting more sales. And everybody can say, oh, that's always the problem. We've had times when that hasn't been the problem. I mean, we've had times when our automation has been completely full and we've had to either turn away or slow down business coming in. We've had times we can't launch a new part at art because we're full. We've had times we can't get more sales than up with paper because we can't produce more cards, or frankly, we can't have as much hands-on. We like to do very intensive customer management. We need to take care of the customers. We don't have people to do that. I don't want the business because you're setting yourself up for failure. But now we're in the position coming out of, the last 2 years have been tough. This year and last year, it was a retailer recession. If you weren't in healthcare and you weren't in government or you weren't in education, it's been tough. Automation has been in a pretty deep recession. Manufacturing has been in a recession. Consumer retail has been in a downturn as well. So as a result, we need more sales for all those companies. We've had to make some operational changes to reflect a little bit lower level of sales this year, which we're not used to. But because the way we vest our people and make sure that they're keeping close tabs on the business, we're able to manage that well. So now we're coming out. Now we are set. Each company is set where they ought to be in terms of personnel. Now let's go out and get sales in 25 and let's grow again.
Okay. So figuring out that next tier of growth kind of
Correct.
after
Yep.
pivoting
Exactly.
and stuff. So no, that's interesting. And it's all you're sensing it in all four lines of business at the same
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
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 Unfortunately, even as diversified as we
Oh,
are, all
yeah.
three sectors that we're in, which is consumer products, goods, manufacturing, automation, all three of those have been in a recession in 24. The depth is different. Automation is
Yeah.
definitely the deepest recession. Consumer spending is the lowest, but all of them are negative. I mean, if you talk to the economists, all three of those sectors are negative.
Okay. Need to be in building data centers, right?
We're in healthcare, we're in government. I mean, government's always growing.
So, team, and you already mentioned to it. Hey, listen to your folks here as well. How do you think about team? What have you found to be successful in the building and developing team? You've got to have a very, we keep using the term diverse, but a diverse team with a broad set of skills and experiences. What are the keys that you guys rely on there?
So my strategy is always empowering the people. We talked about it before. The people know the business better than I do. But what I set up when I became the CEO, I set up each company with two or three senior people to manage the company. So typically there's somebody in sales, somebody in operations, and maybe somebody in finance. Those people manage the business and they report to me. And by managing the business, I mean they have bottom line P&L responsibility, and they're vested in that. And their people are also vested. A strategy of CM Paula for the holding company, going back to when it started, and this is what Charles McCullough is. If we have a good year, we share with the people who made it possible, which are our employees. And everybody knows that. So we share with them, if the more profit we make, the more we're sharing with you, the bigger your bonus is going to be. And I think that's important. And that's all part of empowering, because you can't empower your people if they're not going to benefit from it, right? It's important. People want to know that the decisions that they make are going to be actionable and that they can see the results. But the other result is, hey, if the result results in more sales and more profits, I should benefit from
Yeah.
that. And they should.
Mhm.
So I think that's a pretty top line strategy in terms of how we manage people and how I manage the businesses. And that also helps me be able to manage four such diverse businesses that I've got the two or three people in each that I can count on, that I can touch base. Hey, what's going on with sales at Up with Paper? I can just contact the salesperson. Or what's going on with creative at Geo Central? I can contact the creative person, the leader there.
So building upon that, how do you then attract kind of new talent coming in?
Yeah, I think we are known for empowering our people, and that the people do make a difference from day one. I mean, we've got people that come in and within their first. The best example is probably Geo Central. We had somebody come in, a new designer came in and started on the creative team a couple of years ago, and within a year, something that she had designed and worked on was in one of the largest retailers in the United States, and it was on the floor. So she could go in and see it. She could tell her friends. She could post on her social media. I designed this product, and it's in 4,000 rooftops right now. That's pretty powerful. And so when people hear that they can have that impact, that's the kind of company that they want to work for. And that's more and more true the younger you go in generations. People coming out of college now, getting into the workforce, they want to know they can have an impact. They also want to work for a firm that is doing good writ large. So I'm a big, I put in place, mission, vision, and value statements. I put it on the wall right outside my office to tell people if we're not living up to it, come in and talk to me. But it's important for people to know that we focus on doing good in the world as well as doing good in the industries that we're in. That's a pretty big answer to your question.
Okay. I'm curious, what are some ways in which you're emphasizing doing good?
A couple of things that we do. We decided when we expanded our building last year, which was one of the first decisions I made when I became the CEO, to almost double the size of our building so we could quote larger projects for Remtech and give us more room for growth. I looked into it and decided that I wanted to become the first solar powered firm here in Mason. And actually, I didn't know at the time we were the first, but I wanted to be solar powered. And as I started to work with the government of Mason, I found out that they hadn't done it before because there was nobody here that was. So we ended up we put our money where our mouth is and put 555 solar panels on our roof, and we are now net zero in terms of electricity. And I would have put more up there if I could sell power, but you're not allowed to be a power generator here in Ohio yet. I hope they
Yeah.
will be. The next time when I have to redo my roof, I hope I can fill it with solar panels. But that's one way. We also really focus on trying to increase the sustainability of our packaging and product. The GeoCentral in particular has done a good job of that. Up with Paper has gotten rid of all the poly bags on their products, for example. And we have volunteer time off that we offer to our employees. So if they want to go work for a charitable organization, the company will support that. And we donate to some of the leading charities around here, like Free Store Food Bank and Habitat for Humanity. And we share that. The employees advise up who they would like to see us supporting. And we support that. And then we say, hey, you know what? We supported that financially. You should consider going and volunteering there as well. And again, employees appreciate the fact that we have taken those steps and talk about it, and not just talk about it, but actually that there's action behind the talk.
Well, you shared with us the growth story and how the portfolio, grew over time. Yeah. What's the vision longer term? Where do you see the business, the portfolio 3, 5 years down the road?
That's a good question, Todd. So again, the first generation, which was Charles McCullough, he was super aggressive and active. Again, he was coming in the office until just a few weeks before he died 7 years ago. So by that time, he was in his mid to late 80s. And if you came to him with a project, explain to him how we could expand and diversify the business, man, he was all in it. Give me more information, and I'm in on it. His kids don't live here, and his kids, when I took over as CEO, that they said we're not our dad, and so we're interested. We think we've got the number of companies we have is correct. The industries that we're in are correct. So we don't want to go out and acquire more in other industries. We want to focus on organic growth. So what we're trying to do is grow each of those businesses, and there's a lot of runway for growth. And like I mentioned before, we could have acquisitions within each of those four. If it's I call it a bolt-on, if it's another consumer products line or another manufacturer, different kinds of presses, for example. But the vision really is to grow each of those four companies to be the leader in their industry. That's our goal. We always want to be the leader in the industry.
very diverse business means a very diverse leader with the background you talked about. But that means your day to day has to be a little bit like a pinball action, if you're not careful, right? Of going from one organization to another, a lot of time demand. So, how do you manage, really guiding and leading those four different business lines? You already mentioned the importance of having leaders underneath you. Talk about the keys to building that, but also how else do you manage
Yeah,
that? Yeah.
I would say that having those leaders is the most important, and most of the communications I have with the businesses in either direction do go through those leaders. That said, I'm one of those doors always open. So if somebody comes in, regardless of where they work in the company, and wants to talk to me, we're going to have a discussion and see what we can do with it. But I think the schedule is important, and expectations on communication, both oral and written, are really important. So I have regular touch bases with each of the companies that we schedule. I have a regular day of the week. I'm at art every Wednesday, without fail. So everybody knows I'm over there that day. So if anyone wants to talk to me, that's the day to come over there. But I'm a big believer in the power of the written word. So I encourage my people to organize their thoughts in emails. I'm a big emailer. If you asked anybody on my team, they would immediately start to smile because yes, I do send a lot of emails, and they tend to be lengthy because I like to be thorough and cover everything and leave no questions unanswered. But the expectation is that they keep me updated on the various aspects of their business. And if I do have a question or concern or what I think is an opportunity, I go to them and we develop a plan, not together from the start. The first is the plan comes from them to me, then I give them my feedback, and then they finalize the plan together. Um, but the way to organize it to me is there is some time management involved, but scheduling and communications with those leaders are I think the most important pieces.
Right. Hey, thank you. Hope folks took notes around that as well. So as you look back your leadership journey, what have been some keys that have helped you, become the leader you are, and that you want to share with other entrepreneurs, business leaders who are kind of newer in their journey?
I, to me, I go back again. I do think the most important thing is empowering the people, which to me means you need to hire good people and you need to let them do the work. Don't be afraid to hire somebody who's better than you, smarter than you, whatever it is. I certainly want to hire people that are better than me in my four businesses because I don't have a complete knowledge of any of those four businesses. I want to hire people that and empower them to tell me what it is they want to do. I will force them to explain to me why it makes sense, show me what the investments required, what the potential benefits are, and then hey, let's go get it. But it's important to listen to the people that are in the trenches doing the work because they know more about the business than you do. I
Yeah.
think that's the most important advice, and that really goes back to, even on my days on Capitol Hill, if we wanted to do legislation on healthcare, don't do it sitting in your office. You got to go talk to the people that are administering the healthcare. You got to talk to the insurance companies, the doctors, the nurses, and then you also got to talk to the patients.
Yeah.
And we haven't talked about the customer side, but because I don't talk directly to customers as much
Yeah.
anymore as I used to, but I'm a really big believer in making sure that our people are talking to the customers, and that is what we're known for. Two things, each of the four businesses. First is our creativity, and second is that we listen to the customers and we help meet their needs or solve their problems. And we have to be good at those two things for us to be successful with each of the four companies.
Yeah, spot on. The best information and the best ideas typically don't reside in the boardroom, right?
No,
So,
I'd
so
like to say I had tons of good ideas, but no, the good ideas almost always come from the bottom up. Absolutely.
love it, love it. So, George, as we look to wrap up here today, what are the best ways for folks to stay connected with you and CM Paula and follow the journey?
Sure. Well, CM Paula does have its own website, www.cmpaula.com. Each of the four companies has websites that link off of there, so that's probably the best way for people to start. Each of our websites is pretty robust, so you can see information about it. You can follow up actually directly with the leaders of those companies if you want, or with me. I'm on LinkedIn as well, and my email address is gwhite@cmpaula.com. Happy to communicate directly with people because again, you can only learn if you're communicating with others. And I will say that's one thing that I've done as a CEO level to help me is I've joined a business roundtable here in the Cincinnati area. There's something called the Gehring Center, which really helps family owned businesses here, and that's been a real help to me. And the businesses, it's a diversified roundtable. We've got all kinds of different businesses that are in our roundtable. I am the most diversified, which is shocking, but I am. But it's really helpful because even though they're vastly different companies, we all have open enrollment, right? I mean, you got to buy your health insurance. You got to figure it out. We're all doing with hiring, all those different things. And it is helpful at the CEO level to have a peer group that you can talk to. It could be before I became the CEO, my peer group was an industry association. When I was president of Up with Paper, I also was really active in the Greeting Card Association. I became president of that organization. Once I became CEO, I joined the CEO Roundtable at Gehring, and each of those very helpful to me in terms of networking, just being able to talk to somebody, because you do need to talk to people who are not all under you. Because if you're the CEO, everybody in your company by definition is under you, right?
Yeah.
You need to have, and some are not as willing as others to challenge you. I always encourage people to challenge you, but some just aren't. So it's good to have a peer group that will challenge you, maybe open your ideas to some thinking that you haven't thought of before.
Hey, thank you for sharing that. Great advice. Great advice. So as we wrap up here today, George, what are you inspired by?
No surprise, I'm inspired by people. My family inspires me, obviously, but I'm assuming you're talking about business. At any level, what one individual can do, and you think about anything from the largest example recently, which would be Zelensky versus Putin, right? If Zelensky hadn't been there in Ukraine, who knows what would have happened? Down to, had a recent example at ART where we've been doing something the same way for years on an assembly line, and parts were coming off the line and they would end up going into these bins. The bins would have to be taken to the back. And then they'd have to hand count them, pulling them out of the bin, put them in another bin. And the woman who was on the line finally said, there's a better way we can do this, and here's how. So she helped actually design, I'll call it an automation system because that's really what it is. She just designed a different way to handle it coming off the line so that it's all right there. They don't have to be taken to the back and then brought back. Saves us tons of time, doesn't cause her as much strain on her back doing it. I mean, great solution, right? And none of us would have come up with it. She came up with it because she's doing it on the line. And again, one person thought of the idea because she's sitting there doing it, and we implemented it. That's improved our business. And there are just dozens of examples like that. That's just the most recent one I can think of on the top of my head. But and that inspires me that one person can do that.
Yeah. And also speaks to the culture that you've built, right? That she was comfortable sharing her idea and had
Right.
some
I'm not going to sit here
confidence
and keep
someone's
doing
going to do
this.
something with it, right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. All right. Well, George White, CEO of CM Paula, thank you for sharing your journey and the CM Paula story. Just a fabulous story around diversification and growth and building the right culture. So thank you very much.
I appreciate it. People here make it happen, so I appreciate it.
All right.
Enjoy the discussion. Thanks, Todd.
Congrats to you. So, and to our viewers, we were thrilled to have you join us here today. We encourage you to hit the like button to help share this episode. But also, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit subscribe so you can receive future messages like the great message you received from George White here today. And so, with that, we thank you for joining us and wish you all a wonderful, terrific day. Take care.
Thanks.